Hello, I'm Nikki. I'm going to be reading my story, and this is, true. It's called So Deemed Me, Miss Piggy. I've always had trouble with bullies, even in grade school and elementary school. In middle school, I remember sitting on a bench, watching the other kids play and laughing, usually at me or some inner joke, or both. I only had one or two friends that I remember from those days. One was a redhead male cheerleader type who constantly made, well, who got picked on. The other girl I'd known for years. One of the girls who constantly made my life a living hell in those days, later in my teen years, became one of my best friends. I remember everything. Everyone seemed to hate me and pick on me. I've always been a chunky child. But as you can see, my nose isn't perfect, and it goes up at an angle, and the bullies and rude people in my life insist on calling me Miss Piggy. For the longest time, this nickname gave me hell. Well, not the name as much as the people using the name. I remember the name first getting to me when I was around the age of like 13. Um, this guy who I had been friends with since I was like 5 years old, and he was hanging out with his friend. I was standing on a bridge, and as I walked over to them, his friend asked, "Why are you hanging out with Miss Piggy?" I stopped in my tracks. I was a kid. I was immature and emotionally unstable. I was a kid. I started crying and ran away. My bridge was in this little field covered with bushes and weeds. I went there when I needed somewhere to cry or some alone time. After that, I don't remember much until I transferred to a new school when I was in maybe 8th grade. There was a guy, he was probably a sophomore or junior at the time. He was a football player. Um, where we lived at the time was surrounded by hills and trees. We rode the bus together. During lunch, I would go to the pop machine to get a pop. He would always come up to me, press me up against the wall, and make rude comments and call me Miss Piggy. He did the same thing on the bus. I went into a depressive state. I started cutting myself. That's when I knew I needed to get out of there. That school. I asked my mom to transfer me to another school. She agreed that we should do it, though I never told her about the cutting. After the transfer, I met the girl who in grade school caused me so much problems. She showed me around, and we became the best of friends, almost like sisters. She'd been through a lot of bullying herself and realized that, you know, that it wasn't right what she had done. She had been through bullying herself and realized that bullying that she put me through was wrong of her. The year I transferred to the school, our house burned in a grease fire and my grandmother passed away. There were two girls who sat behind me in geometry, and 2 days after my grandmother passed away, I heard them talking about me. I couldn't take it anymore. I busted out crying, and I was moved to the hallway. After that, there was only one incident that year, a little after the house fire. A boy was picking on me and my best friend, the girl who bullied me in grade school, so of course I went off on him. I ended up getting after-school detention. That's all I remember from that school. During my sophomore year, I moved to yet another school. The first 6 weeks of the school was absolutely great. Then this guy from the last school I went to transferred to my new school. Immediately, things started going downhill. I thought I had finally escaped my old life, started anew. At lunch, I was sitting with my boyfriend and my new friends. He was sitting a table away from us. He kept screaming, "Miss Piggy," until we finally left the cafeteria. We walked into the hall where we were all talking. He came up to us out of nowhere and said, "You know, you remind me of Miss Piggy and Kermit talking to about my boyfriend." My friend Laura got mad at him as he walked away. The next day, me and my sister got in a fight. She called me Miss Piggy, and I got depressed and cried for an hour. A few days later, I walked past him going to my lunch, and my boyfriend behind me. He screamed Miss Piggy, and then when I walked back to the table, he did it again. I was so mad that day, I started shaking, and my teeth started to chatter. I couldn't even eat. This is how much bullying affected me. And none of this is, you know, fake. I mean, I've been bullied since I was a kid. It's taken its toll, it really has. I mean, from a young age, I started cutting myself. My little sister's best friend committed suicide because he was bullied. When will it stop? When?